Gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of Nintendo Talk. I am Bobby, the Nintendo Guru, joined by, I don't care what the other king says. This is the king, King Cognito. I'm from Jersey. I'm illiterate. We all know this. From the Iron Lord podcast, Lord Cognito himself. What is up, sir? How are you doing?
What's going on, Lord Guru? I should call you.
No. We're not on your show no more. You just call me Bobby, Guru, or whatever kind of nonsense you want to call me.
Yo, dude,
how you doing, Cog? You right?
I'm doing good, man. Absolute pleasure to be here. Huge fan of you and the show. Man, it is an honor to be out here talking Nintendo. Who would have thought a Sega kid had been here talking Nintendo in the future?
Don't bring up Sega again, and we're going to have to kick you off. Seriously. And we'll get into it in a second, but
we'll get to it.
So the main thing is we're doing these special edition episodes. You were the first one to kick off. Besides Toby did his episode. I got a few other people going to come in this month for the month of August. This is going to be our topic. Our topic is the top 5 Nintendo games of all time for each individual guest. It's their top 5. It's not an absolute top 5. So don't get mad at anybody. Don't start rage tweeting at people like that game don't belong. If he mentions Sonic the Hedgehog, I will hit the emergency, shoot button and get him out of here. Don't worry about that. We won't let him mess anything up like that. But real quickly, before we jump into what we do here, I want to throw the spotlight to you. Let everybody know, what do you do? Where do they find you? Because people that don't know, I did just guest last week on the Iron Lord podcast. Phenomenal time. If you missed it, go back, look at it. I'll have the links in the description down below where you can go find their channel, find all their stuff. Please go check out their work. It is phenomenal stuff. But real quick, let everybody know where can I find you at?
Yeah, man, Lord Cognito here, Iron Lord podcast. Man, just 4 lifelong friends who grew up in New York City and just had this passion for gaming. And, what we used to do when we were younger, we would all put money together and funds together to try to get all the consoles. So if, King had it or I had it or Sovereign had it, we would just get together. And that was our escape. So Saturdays, everyone would pile into my house, about 10, 15 people. And how I've actually convinced my mom, I was like, look, you didn't like me when I was on the street, but I'm here playing video games. And this is our passion. And dude, video games saved my life. I'm not ashamed to say it. I love it. It's a huge passion of mine. And basically, Iron Lord podcast is a continuation of that old tradition of the Saturdays of our friends. That's pretty much what it is.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And something like when I was a kid, right? I grew up in a rural area. Some people call it country, whatever, but it wasn't really country. But it was a rural area. My cousins lived down the street. We all hung out every weekend, rode our bikes up and down the street. I didn't live in a city.
Yeah.
And the city, it's cool, but for a kid, that's trouble. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble. So I can see, that's amazing that your mom was smart enough to be like, hey, you know what? This makes sense. Let's keep the kids where I know where they are. I don't have to worry about them getting in trouble or anything bad happening. So kudos to your mom, man.
Shout out to Mama Cognito. Oh, she's the best, the matriarch.
So listen, let's kick this episode off like we do each and every episode, but this time we're gonna do just Cognito's geek outs. What are you geeking out about this week, there, sir?
Well, I am geeking out about Project X Cloud. Pretty much it is streaming, but I did get a chance to touch it at E3, and I want to shout out the platform guys and the stream team guys. Actually, Bill Stillwell that got a hands-on demo of it, and I'll be honest with you, Bobby. I am very skeptic on streaming. I think it was a gimmick. I'm like, there's gonna be latency. There's not anything, in my opinion, that I thought could be a viable solution. And I got to tell you, man, again, it was a controlled setting in the sense that it was in a Microsoft theater, but it was completely wireless, not wired, and being streamed to a data center 400 miles away in San Francisco. I played Halo. I played a couple of games on it. And I'm going to tell you right now, Bobby, it was non-existent latency, and I was trying to break this thing. I was, so 60 frames. I know you're not a first-person guy, but
I can't do first person.
I know that's your thing. But the reality of it, I felt that was a good test because those are such fast twitch kind of games.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So to me, that is a real testament to how good it was. So they're gonna go public trial, I believe, October. But for first impression, I have to admit, blown away. So I'm kind of excited over Stadia, so we'll see what happens in Stream Wars and all that good stuff.
I think in my opinion, I think why Microsoft has it up on Stadia is the fact that Stadia is the new kid on the block. They're going to charge me $10 a month for this thing or whatever it is. Then I got to buy internet. Then I also have to buy the games on top of it. Where Microsoft, they're basically going hey man, they so right now they're doing what is it, Game Pass Plus or whatever, which gives you games with gold plus Game Pass plus the PC for $15 I think a month, right? So let's just say hypothetically they go $25 a month, right? Which probably realistic.
Actually, I'm hearing my internal sources say Ultimate will be bundled into the xCloud at the $15. Wow. I'm hearing very strong,
so and actually $15 and you get X. Wow.
Yes, I am hearing very strong sources.
So if that is the case, right, you're getting approximately 150 games for free because there's some games that merge between PC and Xbox, but ultimately there's definitely 100 on one and the other. It's just some games merge, some are exclusive to just PC, some are just to Xbox. So if you got that, right, so let's just say you get 100 games. You get 100 games for free, plus games with gold whenever that pops up, whatever games it is, plus you're playing your games online. There's no additional costs. Dude, there's no way they can't win this.
Same thing.
I think that's why Sony is looking at them to hey, let's partner up and do something.
Partner up, exactly.
Stadia, to me, it's one of these things of I don't trust Google. Google's just one of those companies that if it doesn't work quick, we're out. And
absolutely right.
Microsoft has already showed that hey, we're in this for the long haul.
Exactly.
And they're in the service game right now. They don't care. I honestly think they could care less about selling consoles. They could care less. They want games, services, because that's the return money.
Exactly.
Think about it. You put out Halo, whatever they are, 6, whatever, right? You put out Halo 5, Halo 6, whatever number you're on. You throw it out there, right? You sell it for 6 months, right? You spent 5 years building this game. Sell it for 6 months, and you never get another dime off that game again.
Right.
Service packages, you're getting money every single month.
Exactly.
Just makes more sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, brother.
They're. I like what they're doing. I feel like they're starting to do some smart moves, and it's impressing me. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it's looking good. I mean, all I want to put the cherry on a Sunday is that if they can get Game Pass on Switch, because we heard rumblings.
We did hear rumblings.
We heard rumblings. They were in conversation. So I don't know. Maybe with the Switch revision down the road, or maybe who knows, man? That would be
it might
nice.
be something. It could be something where Microsoft and Nintendo are in conversation. It could be something where Microsoft is like, hey, man, let us get our next console out.
Yes.
And then we can worry about what we're going to do, bring to you, whatever it might be. You know what I mean? Who knows what exactly it is. But I hope that whatever they bring, they do kind of bring an achievement system with it. I would love, because I think about playing some of these games, and I'm like, man, how cool would it be to play, Breath of the Wild and having, trophies or whatever they call it, just ticking off as you're doing certain things.
And proper voice chat. Give us your infrastructure. Let's give you the infrastructure. You know what I'm saying? Have that nice marriage, man. Oh, they already playing nice. Cuphead, it's there. Ori, I'm hearing it should be coming. Yeah. I think the building blocks are there for the foundation for the future. Yeah. It just comes down to maybe the timing. Maybe Nintendo say, hey, maybe we're working on, a possible XL version of the Switch a year later when you guys drop it. Maybe Microsoft says, yeah, when Scarlet drops, then we'll revisit the talks. But I definitely think something is cooking between the two. We've heard a lot of sources.
I agree. And the thing of it is if you'd have told me this 5 years ago, first off, I'd have said you're crazy. Second off, I'd have said, give me whatever you're smoking. and third, I'd have been like, I don't want this. Like, this isn't what I want. This isn't the world I want to live in. I want Nintendo to put the boot to everybody's throats and just end them. You know what I mean? Like,
we grew up on. That's how we grew up.
That's
that
how
was
we
the
grew
wars.
up. We talked about that. We talked about it on your episode where it was like how you like grew up and sitting around the cafeteria lunch table and.
Oh yeah.
You know, you'd have the Nintendo Powers out and the Game Pros out on the table.
Oh, EGM.
Arguing with each other. Like, no, this game... Little do you know, it's like Nintendo is just a PR machine, just injecting you with nonsense and lies, and you're believing it with Nintendo Power. It's like, no, this is saying that this is better than anything. It's like, idiot. Nintendo put it out. Of course they said it's the best. So, okay, so let's jump into what we're doing today, and that is your list, your top 5 list games of all time, Nintendo games of all time. What is the first? So let's do this before we jump into that. What is? Explain your list in terms of like. Sure. Is it like a top 5 like of all time? Or like how did you come to this list?
All right. So this I'm glad you, first of all, thank you for the invite because I thought this concept was really cool.
Thank you.
I was so excited when you gave me the invite. So for me, again, we talked about it on Iron Law podcast when I had you on this last episode where growing up initially as a Sega kid, right? So my perspective is different, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because what happened was I had the Master System and my cousin had the NES. And I was like, because I had the Master System, I just had an affinity for the arcades, the hang-ons, and so on and so forth. And then I remember going over his house and seeing the NES for the first time. And Bobby, I'd never been so jealous in my life. I was over his house more with his NES than with my Master System. The Genesis, I got a little thing back. But back to this list basically comes down to, from the perspective, coming from that side, and then seeing all these great games, and then saying, you know what, I got to get me one, man. I can't even fight this anymore. You have to own it. And that's how the NES was to me. And, I kind of stayed a multi-platform house from that point forward. Yeah. But so my list is different. It's going to have some things. It's not going to have a lot of tried and true Nintendo things that I think you may see, but I'll have a couple, you know what I mean? So you let me know where you want me to start from. I'm ready to go. All right.
Go ahead. Give me your first game. What's your first Nintendo game that is your favorite of all time?
So one of my favorites of all time, I have to say, is F-Zero. Okay. Right? Okay. F-Zero, again, start of the Super Nintendo era. I came from the Genesis. I wanted to see what the SNES was offering. At the time, the Super Famicom dropped early in New York. I told you a story. King comes over. He's like, come over, man. I got some games for you. I want you to see what SNES is doing. He threw on F-Zero, and my jaw hit the floor. I've never seen graphic fidelity like that. The speed, the debut of Mode 7, and I'm just blown away at just what it was. So I think for me, it showed me how creative Nintendo was with the NES, but when they had power, look at what they can do. Yeah. So to me, it was just Nintendo with their chest out, an aggressive launch title, very fast. And I just really loved the series, man. They had the different type of cars and stuff like that. I mean, different type of vehicles, stuff like that. And I just thought it was a great launch title. I really, towards that launch window, I really liked that. So.
Yeah, it was definitely, see, for me, I've never been a fan of the series. And I don't know, I think because I just never got it early. Yeah. And it's one of those, to me, it's one of those games that, like, if you got it early, like you bought it and played it early,
yes,
it's one of those games that stick with you. You got to have it. You love it. But if it's not, it's one of those games you look at and go, like, I just don't get it.
Don't get it. Yeah,
I can understand that.
I can understand.
So for me, like, I understand why people love it. A, it's hard. It's not easy. I think for me, especially when Mario Kart hit, I was like, and Mario Kart was a game that nobody expected. Like, we didn't see that coming.
Right.
But when Mario Kart hit, or Super Mario Kart hit on the Super Nintendo, it totally took me out of playing any type of racing game. I just wanted to play Mario Kart all the time. But F-Zero, like, it's got such, like, a cult underground following to it.
It's like you said, you had to be there in the moment. I can totally understand your perspective, because if you're not there at launch, you come onto this game late, you're like, what's the big deal, right? But again, to start off a system and start off a generation, and to see Super Nintendo what I call flex so hard, like I just didn't expect that level of fidelity, and it was fun. It was really fun, man. It was a cool launch game, but it always resonated with me. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing.
The other thing too is what people, I think, and especially younger generation now don't understand is at the time when the Super Nintendo came out, you had Sega basically killing Nintendo with the Genesis. And then Nintendo comes out and goes, hey, we're going to have the Super Nintendo coming out. We got this Mode 7. And everybody was kind of like, the hell is Mode 7? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. And really, in today's generation of gaming, it's the dumbest thing in the world. But back then, it was like, wait a minute. The world is, like, the whole thing is spinning, and all the games were doing it.
Everything. Pilot Wings was doing it. I mean, it was just... that was their showcase technical feat for that. That was the trademark. And at the time, again, Sega was good for the side-scrolling speed, blast processing, whatever. But they didn't really do 3D well.
No.
And that's where Super NES kind of pioneered that. They brought that home. And it just looked phenomenal. It looked phenomenal.
I agree. Okay, what is your second game on the list?
All right, another game on the list. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
Oh, my dude. Now you know I love you. Now you know I love you. Okay.
Bro, changed the game. It was, again, what I call a game for the moment, for that generation. Again, the NES launched, and, this is one of those games that it had. And, again, first of all, I'm old, so I got to talk from the historical perspective.
Absolutely.
I remember going to the arcades and playing Punch-Out, the big one, right?
Yes.
Body blow, left, right. And I remember that game vividly, and it was cool. It's graphically intense for its time, fun little game. And I'm like, okay, so when they brought it home, they changed it, obviously because of the fidelity of the NES, but the thing that was cool was they made it into this story, underdog, Little Mac Rocky thing. And you assumed the role of this character, man. And just even the little sound effects during the round, just cool, fun stuff. And it got you, like, hey, Mac, I can't, hey, Doc, I can't hurt him. And, he's giving you advice. And it just emotionally captured you into the game.
Yes.
And then, obviously, we know your story, so Mike Tyson, right? I mean, it was a difficult game for its time.
I think the thing with that particular game, which makes it so, like, for us, right, Tyson was this enigma. First off, you didn't know a whole hell of a lot about the guy, because he didn't do many interviews, he didn't do a whole lot of stuff, and he was killing people.
Yes.
Like, just going into the ring and destroying them.
He was this mythical figure.
Yes.
So it was the perfect combination to sign him.
Yes.
Fantastic job, because he ended up being your end boss of the game. And it was, I remember as a kid, you feared getting hit by him. Like, it was one punch, you're out. Like, all the other characters, they had their moves and stuff.
Yeah.
Tyson was so dominant, it mirrored his real life performance. So I think it was the perfect license signing, the perfect boss to a game. And then let's not underrate all the other cool boxers that they had. King Hippo and
all of them.
I mean, these are just fun little, where you have to learn strategies to beat. And I just thought it was done so well.
I remember because I didn't get an NES right away.
Right.
My cousins got them first. And I never forget, I was playing Little League Baseball. It was during practice one day, and I was playing second base. And I remember the shortstop and third baseman were talking about how far they had gotten in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And they were talking about, like, strategies. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, because at the time, people could, like, it was like this crazy thing of, like, you would get to a certain character and nobody could pass that character.
Yes.
And then once the first person beat that character, not everybody can get up.
Everybody can beat, because they're like, yo, this is what you got to do right here.
Yeah.
When ball starts to rush, you got to get in the button.
And it's crazy, but that's what it became. It became this game of, like, you'd sit around the playground trying to figure out how to beat certain characters. And, like, for me, the King Hippo was tough. You know, he was rough. Mr. Sandman was.
Oh, Mr. Sandman, bro.
And Mr. Sandman was, if you went through the game, you
Mm-hmm.
didn't face him.
Yes.
When you lost to Macho Man,
Mhm.
you went back, and then you faced him.
Bro.
And he was tough.
Tough.
And for me, like, the crazy thing too is, you didn't even know. Like, I beat everybody. Like, the crazy thing was, the first time I fought Tyson
Mhm.
was because of the code.
Yes.
And I hadn't even beaten every character yet at
Up until that point. Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
And I remember after about a week of playing and trying to beat Tyson, I thought to myself, maybe if I can go back and beat every character, this will teach me
Yes.
to beat Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
I was wrong, because I was able to beat every character, but you get to Tyson, it's a different animal.
It's a different level.
Like you said, like for the first minute and 30,
Oh.
if he hits you one time,
Time.
you're
It was
down.
it.
You're down.
And remember, it was so, like, graphically for its time. We gotta give Punch Out its due.
Oh, yeah, man.
I mean, the face model, he even had the little gold teeth, the little shimmer.
Yeah.
It was a perfect encapsulation of what was going on with boxing at the time,
Yeah.
and then just a great storyline. They had a winner with that, man.
The other thing too is, and I don't know if many people know this, Nintendo did something on purpose with that game, and that was Little Mac was little for a reason. If you play that game, you notice Little Mac is jumping and
Yes.
punching guys in the head, and the reason was because Tyson was little.
Mm.
And what they were trying to do was to make you kind of feel like Tyson did, where Tyson would go against these guys that were like 2 times his size.
Yeah.
Every single fight, they had the longer reach and all that stuff, and he was still knocking them out. And that was the whole thought process was, let's make Little Mac little, give you this idea of like you are building to
Yes.
go, and you're becoming the underdog and the little champion.
Yes.
What? Okay, so let's break this down because you got my favorite.
Let's
team.
go.
We're
Let's
gonna
talk,
about
baby.
this.
Let's talk.
Did you ever beat Tyson?
Yes.
Okay. Did you? So I'm assuming you can beat, or not? Maybe not now because it's
been a while. It's been a while.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I'm going back. I beat him a year ago, and I actually beat Mr. Dream. It wasn't even.
That's
Tyson.
Mr. J. Yeah.
And I was like, this game is still so hard, but
so hard. It's still good.
so good. But so my question for you then is,
Yes. Question.
were you able to go through and beat every boxer?
Yes, it took a long time though. It took a long. I mean, I remember Hippo. They were all, like you said, like on the playground. I call them checkpoints. There were certain guys you got to, and you're like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Hippo was obviously a first for a lot of people,
Yeah.
hitting that stomach, doing that stuff. I remember struggling with Great Tiger for some reason with the thing and the spinning and all that. I remember that, and then I think after that, Mr. Sandman, yes, obviously Super Macho Man. Super Macho Man was something, man. It was so. The game had, you got it. I mean, even Ball Bull to an extent, the timing of the rush and stuff like
Especially
that.
the second Ball Bull.
Oh, when he comes back, yes,
The
bro.
the shorter bull rush.
Yes.
And yeah, man. And you could only knock him down with a star punch, or because like you would hit him, he'd run out of power. I'm like, boom, 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 hit him. He's supposed to go down. He turn back, and I'm like, are you serious right now? Like,
it was tough, bro.
Like this dude should be down, and he literally took a step like he was gonna fall, and then turned back, and I'm like,
bro,
that you want to talk about fear? That I actually went like, how do I beat this guy?
You just nailed it. That's what makes the game great because you nailed it. The little stature of Mac.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And these guys are imposing, right?
Yeah.
So it built fear and tension. Your dodges had to be good. You had to time that star, but when to use it.
Yeah.
It's a great game, man.
It's
great.
Amazing game. Did you beat Tyson? How did you beat Tyson in terms of like, were you using the code at that time to get to him?
I used the code in the beginning to get to him, and I just did the same thing that you did. I just worked on. I was just getting mauled, and it got to the point where I was like, I gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
Timing the uppercuts, when the whole rhythm to it, and then getting them out of there the first round. But it took a long time.
It took. Yeah, it takes. So because that's the thing. If they didn't, and I can tell you where I learned the code, but I can't tell you where that person learned the code. Like, I remember being with my cousin over his cousin's house,
Mm-hmm.
and him saying, like, I got this code to get to Tyson. I'm like, there is no code to get to Tyson. He's like, no, look. And he put it in. And
Yes.
I had literally, this is the way little kids were back in the day. And I'm sure they're the same way now. But let me tell you something, people. Kids back in the day, they were little bastards. This kid literally made me beg him for 2 hours
Wow.
to give me the code. I sat there and I was like, please, dude. Please. And his name was Bobby, too. I was like, Bobby, please, can I have the code? Come on, man. No. Maybe I'll give you. And then he started giving me, like, one number.
He's evil.
Oh, yeah, he was a jack. He was a jack off. So, and then finally, by the time I left, I got the code, and I was like, okay, no problem. And then, but, like, I remember, and I was having this conversation one time with Sean Capri, and we were talking about the Nintendo phone number he used to call in.
Yes.
The Nintendo hotline.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember calling there and saying, is there a code to get to Mike Tyson? There's no code to get to Tyson. And I'm like, okay, no problem. You charged me money to lie to me. That is not okay with me, Nintendo.
Nintendo hotline for deceiving you.
Like, I think we should go back and start a class action suit about that stuff. Like, forget the drifting Joy-Con. You stole my money. You sat there, you had me call in, I paid you money to talk to some idiot with a gigantic book in front of him, and he told me no, there's no code to get to Tyson.
Oh, man.
So that always makes me wonder where if that's the case. Because I remember Nintendo Power published the number.
Yes.
But it was years later.
Way later. Way later. Yeah.
I want to know where the code came. Like I can't figure it out.
It's one of those mythical codes. I put that right up there with Contra. You know, the up, down, left, right, BA star. I mean, mythical codes that you remember. It was so powerful how it changed the game. So yeah, absolutely. Man.
Okay, here we're gonna move on. I just want to know: do you know the code to Tyson?
I don't remember it off top now.
No?
No, I can't remember it off top now. I'm old, man.
You depressed.
Come on, recite it back.
007-373-5963. Anybody looking for it? That's the code. That's what you do. I have a shirt. I have a T-shirt that has that code.
Has the code.
It has a code on it. And I had people look at me like, "What's that? Why you got a phone number here? That's a weird phone number." I'm like, no. That's the code to amazingness right there. That's what that is.
Absolutely right.
Okay, so what is your third game on the list?
Third game on the list. Now, this one's funny because obviously I'm Lord Cognito from the whole ninja thing, the gaming ninja. So it's got to be Ninja Gaiden, man. It's got to be Ninja Gaiden. I mean, again, the old gamer I am, I remember the arcade first. And the arcade was completely different. It was kind of like a two-player co-op beat-em-up.
Yes.
We would jump and throw the guy over. And it was cool for its time. I liked it. But again, I remember the NES version. I remember getting a Nintendo Power. And in my opinion, what made the game, even though it was completely different, it was the cinematic storytelling. Yeah. Like, it had cinema. It to me, I always considered like Ninja Gaiden the pioneer of that at that time. Because at that time, I don't remember games doing cinematics after you beat a level. You know what I'm saying? And it would show close up of the ninja and he's talking and Ryu Hayabusa and I'm like, okay. And it just connected me with the character. Yeah. So classic platforming, great weapons, you know, they went on a zillion sequels, but Ninja Gaiden will always be dear to me. And then let's be honest, like, you know, the Dead or Alive franchise spawned because of that. You know, then it, you know, what's this game, the guy from Team Ninja, when they made more spin-off, like, it really jumped off a whole culture. And again, back at that time, ninja games were the thing. You know what I'm saying? Again, my favorite games of all time are probably like Shinobi in the arcade. Yeah. But Ninja Gaiden, man, that is up there for me because it truly had a storyline that I was like, okay, let me get into. So yeah, props to the Tecmo and those guys, man.
And that's the thing. And it just, because I know we're going to somebody in the comment section go like, this was exclusive to the NES. You couldn't get it anywhere else but the NES, so that's why we're allowed it on the list. Just stop. But the thing is now I played one. Well, my first one was 2. I didn't buy the first one, and I was just like, I don't want anything to do with this game. I'm not really a fan of it. Who's this Tecmo? I don't want to mess with them. And then Nintendo Power. was the second. When the second one came out, I started like seeing the stories and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like a movie. Yeah, like you watch cutscenes today. My true belief is like that's where cutscenes began.
Preach it, brother. That's the mark.
Yeah,
I can't remember any period prior to then on console where they were doing cinematics or storylines.
Yeah.
To me, it's like The Godfather in a way.
Yeah, it was the first. I love the second one. I've gone back and played the first more seriously.
Yeah.
And it's weird because as I play games now, and when I go back and play retro games, they're not as hard as I remember them being.
Yes.
Partly, I guess, because I was a kid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I felt like I was a really good gamer as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like I definitely was the best of all my friends.
Nice.
That was no doubt about it. Like, but so for me, it was always like, but games were tough, still tough back then.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to be able to beat a game was, like I used to keep a list of all the games I beat when I was a kid, and Ninja Gaiden was one of them. You know what I mean? And or Ninja Gaiden, whatever you want to call it. Depends on where you're from. You know.
Yeah, we New York. Game.
I just call Ninja Gaiden all the time. But the thing is like those games were just so good and so powerful, and those cutscenes and all that stuff. It was like it gave you emotion and all. Like watching him. Spoilers, whatever. Like in Ninja Gaiden 2, watch him get shot, Ryu getting shot, and then like he wakes up and it's some woman, and it's just so the stories were so amazing, so good.
Great man, great game.
Now, which was your favorite of the three?
That's tough, man. 2 was. You might have me with 2. 2 was good, man.
Yeah,
2 was really good. Yeah, I probably would give it a 2. I just have a nostalgia thing with 1 because it's the first. I'm always prejudiced when it's something debuts a feature or something that is revolutionary for the time.
Of course.
So I think I'm leaning with 1 right now, but probably I would say 2 is probably the better game. I leave with 1 just for the emotional connection I had to it. You know what I mean?
2. The thing is like with 2, or no, not even 2. Any of the games.
Yeah.
They reminded me a lot of that Castlevania type feel. Where, the controls of the character, the platforming was not perfect.
Right.
It was good.
Yes.
But I felt like the what lacked in the controls spiked the difficulty a little bit. Like it made, because the things weren't precise, dead on.
I got you.
The worst thing was like you get hit. And you're not. The worst was those damn birds, man.
Oh, the birds! The birds.
Or the wind. The wind.
Yes, oh my lord! Don't
the winds that, like you go and you jump, you're in the air, and here comes the wind. And you're like, there's death. Like,
I want to shout out studio real quick. Shout out to Sabotage Studios. They have a game out. It's on the Switch in the eShop. It's called The Messenger. Oh, yeah. And in my opinion, it's kind of like a spiritual successor in this age. That's like an 8-bit and a 16-bit mode. But man, Ninja Gaiden, man, and I had the interview with the dev. I had him on ILP, and he was just telling he grew up with Ninja Gaiden, man. That was his bag, man. So you could see the inspiration.
There's a new one coming that Yacht Club is actually producing that looks unbelievable.
Really?
Like, you think Messenger looks like Ninja Gaiden?
Yeah. Really? What's that title?
I'll give you after the show. I forget the name of it, but my God. Like, you think Ninja Gaiden is some stuff, got nothing on it. Nothing on it at all. It is. Matter of fact, I'll look it up while we're doing it. Tell what's your fourth game? Go ahead.
All right, so here's now we're moving up the list. Now, this is the most controversial. I might get kicked off the show.
Oh, here we go.
It's on my list.
There we go.
All right, this was controversial, but this game gave me so much joy as a kid. This is a little bit of a cheat because I'm kind of going with the franchise, right? Mm-hmm. But again, I had my N64, and one of the greatest features I always felt, because I had a TurboGrafx, but you had to get a multi-tap with TurboGrafx to play with your guys, right? But the 64 had the 4-core built in. You had your little Batarang controllers with the analog. And I used to have the crew over. And I'm telling you right now, those Aki, WCW, NWO games, I'm telling you right now, they were, to this day, the best wrestling games ever on any console. Don't shake your head, Bobby. Don't you dare shake your head, because I'm telling you right now, the fun that was enjoyed by those Nintendo wrestling games. Shout out to Aki for the development. It had the perfect balance and fighting system, the reversal. All you wrestling heads that's listening, don't worry about Bobby. I got y'all. Y'all know the N64 was the king of wrestling games. They had it all. Was it WCW Nitro, No Mercy?
Okay. Now you got me.
All of them.
That WCW nonsense. Keep it out of here.
Of course, well, they lost the license, Bobby. And then they had to, you know what I'm saying?
And then they went to the Superior console, or the Superior company, and we got that Stone Cold Steve Austin and No Mercy. Like, come on. Actually, WrestleMania 2000 was really good.
Yeah, you could make your own pay-per-view.
Yeah, man.
Dude, it was so crazy. Like, I used to have people over. We would put our names in a hat, right? So how it would be is we do like a battle royal, and that would determine one contender match. Then the person would battle for the belt. Now, King, get this. You're going to laugh now. King ordered the $200 WWF Championship belt. So what would happen is if you won that weekend, you got to take the belt home. Dude. So competition was fierce.
Dude, yes. Why did you call me up? Where's this belt now? Let's bring it back out.
We'll have it.
I will come to New York and I will claim it.
You got to come through, brother. When you come to IOP, next time we'll have you on. Ask King. Yeah. I heard the stories about the belt.
Dude.
And he went out.
Okay, so real quick before I forget, I'm gonna. The game is called Cyber Shadow.
Oh, okay.
It's a game that Yacht Club is producing. It's very Ninja Gaiden-esque. So go take a look at it. Just go watch the trailer. You'll love it. That aside, let's get back on point. I loved WrestleMania 2000, but I love No Mercy.
Oh.
I used to do this is the most geekiest thing you could ever do in all your life. I've talked about it on a couple podcasts before. But I was involved in this thing back in the day. They were called E-Feds. Electronic Federations. They were wrestling federations. Role-playing. And what you would do is... This is so stupid. This is so dumb.
Let's get it.
So what it would be is, this is back in the AOL days, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you would have an owner. And the owner would designate who's wrestling who. So this week it's going to be this guy for this guy. So let's say it's Guru versus Cognito this week. You have the role play deadline ends Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
You can do the role play limits is 3. So that means from whenever the match is determined on Monday typically. Till Thursday, we have 4 days to write a story. Basically, you're basically writing a story.
Wow.
Cutting promos.
Wow.
Against each other. And you're basically just trash talking. You know.
Let's go.
So so then the owner would determine who basically won the promo war, right? And then whoever won. Basically, what would happen is then you have Thursday's a deadline. Typically Friday or Sunday, the owner would then release a match. Okay. Whatever the event was called, he would do it, and he would then type a role play of the entire event.
Wow.
So you would have like commentators saying like Irish Whip into the rope. So you would read it, and it was like you were reading a Monday Night Raw or something like that. And so what happened was, at one point I had my own fed. I was running my own fed. I had all these wrestlers and all this stuff, and I was doing all this stuff. And then so I had all these friends that were in it. Well, No Mercy hits at that time. And in order to join my federation, it was called the SWO, Supreme Wrestling Organization. So in order to join the SWO, that's so stupid. God, in order to join, you'd have to send me an application. And in the application, it would get your name, your height, your weight, where you're from, your like your 5 moves that you use all the time, your setup move, your finisher move, right?
Absolutely, gotta have a finisher.
So what I did was I took all these applications,
Making the wrestlers,
and I started making the wrestlers
That's
and putting
fire.
them in the thing, and I was like going so in depth, like, because not only that, like, each character would also describe what they look like, what their tights look like, all that stuff. So I was like basically taking in my mind and what in their application was, and so I basically had like a roster of like another 50 wrestlers that were just people that I was friends with. So you'd start playing, it was all like so amazing.
And
man.
nailed it, because that's the underrated feature, was the creator player option. It was so robust down to the move list.
Yes.
It was situational, what you do here, what against the ropes, what do you do when you go off the top rope, what type of punch set you want, what type of, I mean, it was in depth. And what was so cool is you kind of didn't need to, like, let's say for example a new wrestler debuted in WWE or whatever, you know, you could create that guy, you know what I'm saying, and put him in your game, and then like me and my friends are like, hey, you know what, he needs a better super. This is a little too strong. And, you know, we would like argue and stuff, and we would tweak it just so people are like, okay, this is fair, this is balanced. He's competition ready now. Everyone approved. Dude, so many memories.
The coolest thing about that game was because they had done the WCW No Mercy stuff previously. Then they did WrestleMania 2000. But No Mercy was like the best of the best. But what was amazing about that was, if you remember, they actually took a lot of the finishers and moves from WCW and put it in.
Yes.
So basically, people were creating Hulk Hogan and all these characters that left. So then the even cooler thing was when like Chris Jericho shows up.
You already got him.
Create Chris Jericho because all his moves are there. It was so amazing, man.
And again, the thing I want to really specify, we used to play a lot of wrestling games. All right, you had the 4 players, you had all the different match types.
Everything.
Tables, chairs, triple threat, battle royal, everything hardcore. Then what was cool with the battle royal, which was the longevity, if you got eliminated, you would be on the outside of the ring, and you could still use your controller and harass and pull somebody's leg and we would cost our friends title shots, and they would get it to Sovereign. I've never seen, it's the first time I've seen Sovereign and his brothers Kaibatsu arguing, let's get into a fight over this game. It was that intense. So you couple all these things, then we're doing belts on the line.
Oh my God.
Bragging rights, bro. You have no idea. The love for that game, I mean, it was intense, bro.
That's phenomenal.
That game, it's not going to be on many people's lists.
Nah, but you know what? That's just
so much joy to us.
Now, didn't they do Fire something wrestling?
I forgot. This is what I used to follow. Sav knows the history, but the reason I used to think it was just, you know, one company, whatever. So apparently the company that I like is called Aki, A-K-I.
Yes.
So they're the developer that made, because again, it was such a balanced thing. It was almost like paper, rock, scissors, strike. And then they used to put the chest out to block, right? So it's a great balanced system. It was always a guessing game. But since then, I guess whoever had the other licenses, when we buy the subsequent games and then they go on the PlayStation, it just wasn't the same. And then he was like, yeah, Aki doesn't make it. And I believe they went to either Fire Pro or some other thing and developed elsewhere, but they never got back to the license again. I don't know what that whole story was.
Because if I'm not mistaken, they went to... They put out one on Steam, and then they just put one out on PS4, I think, and it was actually like Kenny Omega's in it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh my God, I want this game so bad. Like that, to me, that's the thing. Like that game, just brings back so like wrestling games since then. I'm sorry, man. The games today by 2K, they are horrible, man.
They're horrible.
First off, the frame rates are trash.
Trash.
Everything's messed up. It's like you literally have to spend hours just learning how to kick out.
It's how to. Thank you. It was the beauty in the Aki games with the simplicity, but it had so much more depth than you thought. Yeah, to this day, they never replicated that fun. And I hold the 64. I mean, the 64 is a great system. I mean, they have so many tremendous fans. The Mario. I don't want to go with the classic stuff. I'm just going to go with the stuff that, in my opinion, gave us the most choice. So that had to be that whole hockey franchise of WWE games on Nintendo 64. Amazing.
Amazing. Okay. What is your final game, sir?
Ooh, all right. This was tough. This was tough. This is tough. This again controversial, but again, this now let me set it up for you so you understand why it's here. Okay, again, got back into Nintendo, stayed with them all the way to the 64. Right. Once the Wii kind of dropped, I knew it was a great I knew it was gonna blow. It just wasn't for me. I didn't want to physically involve. Right. So I'm like, still not for me. GameCube was okay. GameCube was okay. I just didn't feel moved like I had to own it. I know it's going to piss a lot of people off, but that's just the way I felt at the time. I was kind of gravitating towards PlayStation, other things. So then Wii U comes out, I'm like, not so much. And then I remember sitting on my couch and seeing the Nintendo Switch commercial. And I said, Bobby, this is going to sell like hotcakes. I said, because it literally described my life. I'm like, there's a guy sitting on his couch, he's playing, he takes the Switch, he's getting on the plane. I'm always on the go. That's me. Yeah. They got me. Yeah. I'm back. And the game they were showcasing was this remarkable figure we remember from our past. And I'll never forget, dude. I don't get emotional, but when I saw the Breath of the Wild trailer and it started the journey, he's climbing up the side of the thing and the music and bro, I'm like, that's the Nintendo I miss. Yeah. These are the dudes. Yeah. And it was scored musically. And I remember getting it. And I bought the Switch. I mean, people have to understand how impactful that is to the success of it was a launch title. Yeah. For the Switch, you brought it, and again, people may have its complaints. They may say, "Hey, it's not the best Zelda game." I get it. You know what I'm saying? I know Addict. He's a hardcore Zelda guy. He's like, it doesn't have the best dungeon. I get it, but it was Zelda open world. You had the weapon system, and then to me, what made Breath of the Wild phenomenal is it had all these different systems of all these games combined into one. You had stamina. You had the what? I mean, it just merged it perfectly, and you truly could go anywhere at any time you want. It was no, what's the word? Where it's how most games try to force you down a path.
Yeah, they're hand holding you. It wasn't linear. It was just basically like it wasn't linear. It was just basically like you go wherever you want to go. Do what you want to do.
Again, the climbing, there was no limits to what you could do. The horseback riding, it just to me was the perfect marriage of all these great systems into a great Link package. And I gotta be honest, Breath of the Wild single-handedly got my Nintendo cape on. I said, I'm in here, baby. I'm riding all the way through, man. That's it reinvigorated me, and I think it really had a lot of power. Yeah. And I don't know where the Switch would be if it didn't have that as launch. I'll be completely honest with you. That's how impactful it was to me. So Breath of the Wild.
The crazy thing is, and we were talking about a little bit on your podcast, where I was just saying, like I had said on the podcast, was like, you tell me another game that launches day one and is damn near perfect.
Perfect.
Like and not even just that. I mean, like in terms of like the game's not broken. There was one issue with the game, one major issue with the game, and that was the slowdown when you got into the grassy areas.
Right.
And that turned out to be Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi thing.
And they fixed it 2 weeks later, and it's I've never had a slowdown in that game since. Little bit when you go into the forest. Yeah. To go get the Master Sword, but other than that, like it's frame rates are always there. I remember, and the thing is like that is my first true open world game. I had never really played an open world game at that point. I tried Fallout 4 prior, and I just didn't understand. The system. I didn't understand fast travel. I didn't understand how to read the map. I was it's just one of those things that like if you don't know, it's hard.
Hard, yeah.
But for some reason with Breath of the Wild, it never felt daunting to me.
Yes.
I think maybe because a lot of it felt familiar. The enemies felt familiar.
Yes.
Like a game like Fallout, like you see an enemy, I don't know whether that thing's powerful or not.
Right.
I mean, but with a Zelda game, like I know I know Bogoblin's not that. I should be afraid of a Bogoblin. You know what I mean? Like a little slime thing, whatever. I'm not worried about those things. Like, but you see the big Hinox and stuff, you go, okay, we'll take a minute here. We'll take, so. But the thing about it was, I didn't realize how that game messed me up.
In which way?
Because when I went back and I went to go play Skyrim for the first time, could not play it. When I was trying to go up a mountain, and I'm like, wait, you're telling me I have to literally go up a path?
Yes.
To get to the top? I can't just weave my way up, even weave the way up. And I'm like, I don't want to play it.
Out here like this. Love it.
I literally stopped playing Skyrim because of that. And I was like, I just have no desire to have to try to find the path to get around this mountain to get to that town over there.
Dude, the verticality in that game was just outstanding. And then just the cool things, using, the thing as a glider.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, then we were also forgetting you had all the different elements. You had heat, you had cold, you had to keep him warm. Even when you got your abilities, it turned into Portal. You had things, you had the magic thing, you're moving rocks, and it was just all these ingenious systems into this great package with a familiar character we all know and love, Zelda Breath of the Wild, man. I guess, again, for guys like me, like I said, that is what brought me all the way back in.
I think for me, the one thing that, when I look at this game, right, and I go, the one thing still to this day that just throws me off is how in real world it is. Meaning, like, things that happen in real world will happen.
Yes.
Meaning electricity and fire and all. And, like, I remember I was in this one particular shrine, and you had to basically, like, form an electric path on the ground in order to unlock things, right? And you had to move these pieces, these metal pieces in, and I couldn't find the one metal piece. And I'm like, wait a minute, my shield is metal. And I dropped my shield on the ground, and boom, it conducts the electric. And I'm like,
bro,
holy crap, man, this actually works. Like, dude, it was things like that.
Yes,
it just made me go, this is pretty spectacular. Like,
you nailed it. And last point I want to say, what was so cool about the game is because it's non-linear. I remember speaking to the other lords. Everyone's experience was different. We would be like, yo, what did you do? And I was like, yo, I went to this town and I talked to somebody. She said she needed help. And then she attacked me. It was a ninja. And I was like, they were like, really? And they're like, somebody's like, hey, I'm over here where it's hot. And it was just so cool because we would like round table discussion on our experience in the day of what we dealt with. And then the cool armor sets and the different gear sets and one for climb. It was just
amazing.
Man.
Amazing. That's the thing that I love about that game is I remember because when that game launched, myself, Toby, and Sean, we were all doing one show together at that point. It's the only time we all did a show together at one point. And we had just launched Patreon. We're doing the show together and all this stuff. And like before the show started, we would all talk Breath of the Wild. And it was Toby is so anal. It's not even funny. No spoilers. You can't talk about spoilers.
Oh, but you can't talk about it.
So you're trying to talk about where you're at without really getting into too much detail. But it's like the crazy thing was that like he went one way, I went another way, and Sean went another way. And it's like we're all playing the same game. We all have different experiences. And that to me is phenomenal. And I actually went back a couple months ago and restarted it and purposely went a different direction than I did when I first played. And the experience was like, I'm finding stuff I didn't even know existed.
Bro. And then, the Guardians, the Divine Beasts. I mean, it's truly, truly well done, man. Really, really great game.
What is... real quick before we wrap up, what is your favorite story from Breath of the Wild? Like, what's something that happened to you that's just like your favorite thing that happened in that game?
There's so many, bro. Oh my lord! I mean, again, I told you one mini one was just again the story of of just like that village where people are setting you up, and I'm like, oh, I'm helpful adventurer. Let me go help you out. And then he's like, surprise, and then he flips and the suit comes out, and I'm like, what is going on? And they were tough.
They were tough.
That made me laugh. I was like, I was talking to people like, has anyone experienced this? Because at the time, no one knew what I was talking about. So I think beating my first Divine Beast was up there. Yeah. I liked the Watertown. I forgot the character's name. Kind of like a amphibious character.
Yeah, the Zoras.
Sora. So cool. Yeah. And I like finding that town, helping him out. And during the battle, he's like, okay, Link, do this, go up. And like we're fighting again. It was so cool. It's so many moments. I think
there's some good stuff in that game.
What about you?
So the moment that sticks in my head as we're talking right now is... well, two things. One was the first time I see the castle. Like, I'm just going around looking for memories, right? Yeah. I hit my first memory, and I'm like, I want more of these things. So I start going to try to find memories, and I'm in the middle of the field in front of Hyrule Castle. And I look up as I'm looking around and stuff, and I look up and go, oh, my God, the castle's not that far away. I'm just going to see how far. I want to go get it. I'm going to go to the castle. I'm going to go. And I start running across the field. And I'm running, and then all of a sudden that piano starts playing. And then I see a red dot in the back of my head, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's like, boom, and I'm dead, one shot. And I was like, I'm not going back there. And I just went, as soon as I respawned, I went the opposite direction.
It put the fear in you. But think about how cool it was when you finally got enough hearts and you got strong, and then you're deflecting, and you do, it was so cool, man.
And then the other thing I did was, the Lionels always scared me.
Lionels scared me.
Even to this day, right? I'm always getting nervous when I fight a Lionel. So I'm going into Hyrule Castle, and I'm like, I just want to see how far I can get. I didn't realize that Ganon really wasn't that deep in. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I had a decent amount of hearts, but not that many. And when you're coming through the gates the front way, right? You go through this room, and you drop it in this room, and the doors close. And then all of a sudden, a Lionel's there. And I'm like... and I pause the game, and I fast travel out, and I never went back.
Dude, the Lionels put the fear in me too. You ain't out here. Don't be ashamed. I did this out. Yo, the Lionels, they come and bring fear. I will say this another moment. Getting the Master Sword.
Yeah, that was cool.
In that forest. Yeah. It was such an iconic moment. The way he drew. I mean, the Master Sword is in it, but it just, the way it was done, I felt was a good cinematic homage. Yeah, absolutely. And then you felt powerful. So, shout out, man. One of my best.
Amazing. Awesome list. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it. So that is all. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Nintendo Talk. Be sure to check out everything my dude here, Mr. Lord Cognito, is doing. Real quickly before we wrap up, let them know where they can find you at and all that.
Absolutely. Iron Lord Podcast. Every Sunday is the Lord's Day. You can catch us on YouTube, Iron Lord Podcast. Again, Sundays, 1 p.m. Eastern is the Lord's Day with all the crazy lords in there. We talk about the latest topics in gaming. You can also find us on audio, Spotify, all that good stuff. And again, if you're into statues, we have King of the Statues programming with my man Lord King. If you're into movie reviews, we do roundtable reviews of some of the latest like comic and MCU kind of stuff. And then if you're into looter shooters like the Destinies, the Anthems, and the Divisions, you can catch me and my friend Ebontis every Friday morning, 9 a.m. Again, all on the Iron Lord Podcast channel. We got a bunch of programming. We try to get out to the shows and E3s as much as you can, give you guys coverage. Bobby, this is an honor to be on this show. I got the call. I said, I'll be here, but with boots on, with bells on, man. Oh, thank you so much, brother. This
was amazing, man. This was so much fun. It's funny how it works. It's funny how you're doing podcasts. We've been doing stuff about the same amount of time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you guys are right around 150 shows. Like and we've been doing stuff at the same time. Never ran into each other. Never knew each other. And then about a month and a half ago, you reached out to me, and I'm like, okay, why does this guy keep calling me Lord? I don't know what's going on. Okay. I'm like, I guess I'm in. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy is like, he is a like Lord of the Rings geek. And then I'm like, I'm screwed. And then all of a sudden, I get into the call with all you guys. I'm like, wait a minute, these guys are really cool, man. All right. I was expecting some little Harry Potter looking guy to fire up the cam.
Hey, what's going on? You was expecting us to all have our little chalices.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good, man. I was actually sitting there thinking to myself, maybe I should just back out. I should just make up a lie that something came up and I can't be there. And I was like, you know what? No, we're going to go through it. I'm so happy I did. I feel like I made a really good friend, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for all of us, and some collaboration stuff. So happy you reached out to me. But anyway, you can follow me as usual over on Nintendo. Over on Twitter and Instagram at Nintendo Gurus. That is all. Peace out, Preston.
Peace.